because in my mind, I was just like, I'm going to just go rule the world and, everyone come follow my lead, come with me, family. I'll lead us to the promised land, And then we came back home and then I felt like a loser, like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, like so typical Shar, like, okay, I had a baby and like I have no job and we were living with our parents and wasn't able to contribute anything. And Kiali'i, my boyfriend, was like, Shar, you have got to start working. We can't just keep living with our parents and money's running out. You've got huge student loan bills to pay. And I'm sorry, if you're not going to find a way to use your degree, you're going to have to go back to bartending.
From RISEHI, this is Why Not Me, a show about Kama'aina creators, entrepreneurs, and community leaders. Behind the scenes stories of how they got to where they are and the valuable lessons they learned along the way. In this episode, we get to chat with Kailua girl, Shar Tuiasoa, the brilliant artist behind Punky Aloha Studio. 2 years ago, she became a new mother and moved back in with her parents, still trying to figure out her way as an artist. Flash forward to today, she's thriving as an in-demand artist working with brands as big as Guess. Hear how she channeled her fears to serve as a motivating factor to take action in her career. What's up, Shar? How's it going?
Good morning.
Morning. I know I got you up here at 7:30 in the morning doing this interview. I appreciate it. First things first. Yeah. So we're living in lockdown right now. How's that affecting you? How's the family? What's going on?
I think like everyone else, it has some effects on everyone, I'm sure. So I work from home typically, so my work life hasn't changed at all, really. It's mostly just, I feel for everyone like who hasn't been doesn't have a job to go to anymore. I mean, I feel kind of really privileged in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone's my boyfriend, my partner, he works for the city and county, so his schedule hasn't changed either.
Right.
But it's just like that collective feeling of stress and the unknown, I think that everyone's kind of going through right now.
Everyone's going through, and that's part of the reason why we wanted to start this this show, right? So we're doing this. It's on Instagram, YouTube, eventually be a podcast, and what RISEHI was always about. How do we create optimism that people from Hawaii can do big things, right? Great things. And even so more now, right? With what's going on in the world, feel like we need some positivity. And so, that's what we're doing. And so your little backstory, I know we've talked a few times about this, but I'm sure a lot of people don't know your backstory. You grew up in Kailua and then you went away to college, right? So why don't you give a little backstory of after high school? What was your journey like?
After high school, I feel like I took a similar approach to a lot of my friends, a lot of the people I was around, which was like, you graduate, you kind of don't know what to do for a while. I mean, not a lot of my friends went off to college right away, so I kind of just stayed home and, partied, I worked, and didn't have a lot of direction until the later part of my 20s. And then I started the whole time. P.S. I'm taking small college classes, like art classes.
Yep.
At Windward Community College.
Yep.
And I think somewhere along the way, I just had to make the decision to take myself seriously. Are you just gonna dance around and party your days away until you wake up and you haven't pursued any of your passions? So I kind of just buried my head into making a nice portfolio for art schools, got accepted to some in the mainland, and then off I went to California with my 4-year-old daughter at the time. and my boyfriend and my 4-year-old daughter's dad, we all we're like, oh, we're all gonna go support Shar in the mainland. So we all kind of went up as some beautiful, dysfunctional, colorful family. But so I went up there and I went and studied at Laguna College of Art and Design. And I was up there for about 5 years. I got my BFA in illustration and entertainment design. And the whole plan was entertainment design is basically doing visual development for feature film animation.
Yep.
And I wanted to work in animation. I wanted to work for a big studio. I had my whole portfolio set up. I spent most of my art school years working towards that goal of working for a studio. All of those studios are in LA and Burbank. And as fate would have it, I had a baby during my senior year in art school, and having my super local boyfriend was just like, you know what? We don't have our family here. I'm not raising my child on the mainland. We have to go home. And it's not always all about me. So
Yep.
we decided to move home, and it wasn't that difficult. It's Hawaii, it's my home. My family's here too. So I came over and I was like, you know what? There's nothing that's going to be negative or bad about coming home. Just gonna have to find a way to make it work. And that took a minute.
Yep.
Was just staying at home with the baby, as most new moms or new dads kind of understand. It's just you raising this tiny little thing. It was really hard for me to figure out what to do with my degree now and have the baby, and my whole portfolio was geared towards an industry that didn't even exist here. So
Right. And when you're
it was
talking
just a couple of years
you're talking about the
of
animation industry,
yeah,
right? Where so you
yeah,
had
it
steady gigs.
wasn't
You had you had steady gigs there in the mainland, right? That was paying the
well,
bills.
internship.
Yeah.
And those those lead off to your jobs. And I don't know, for most artists maybe, or if you're not an artist, a portfolio, right? It's generally your collection of work that is geared towards maybe a certain industry.
Yep.
So that whole portfolio was only useful for that industry. It's not like I could take my character designs and go apply for a graphic design job with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of left here and not sure quite what to do, which is kind of how Punky Aloha was born.
Right.
That came down further down the road, but yeah.
So Punky Aloha, right? So how would you explain it?
I feel like, yeah, I've been trying to, like in art, you always put these little compact name labels to
Mm-hmm.
different eras, and like neoclassicism and pop art and modernity. And I was like, oh, well, I have to give myself a name of some sort, but it just seems to always be changing in my mind. So I guess, yeah, those keywords are in there for sure. Retro, I always say modern pop or retro pop, because I feel like there's an element of pop art into my work. I don't know.
Right.
Some may disagree. But it pulls, yeah, I think my work just tends to pull from a lot of different places. I like figurative work, so I pull from my love for Egon Schiele, but I also have I love cartoons, so I love Mary Blair and Maurice Noble, and I pull from a lot of that. I don't know. I make work that feels very honest, and a lot of times it is a little bit funky, super colorful.
Yep.
That is an ongoing thing.
Yep. So you move back here, right? You're moving back, and you don't know what you're gonna do for a living, right? You have a newborn, and you're trying to figure it out. And so what is that environment like? What are you feeling internally when you're like, okay, I get to move back home, which is great, but what am I gonna do for a living? What does that feel like for you?
Yeah, it feels like it's very much fear driven. I was filled with fear and desperation. I was filled with disappointment in myself, because in my mind I was just like, I'm going to just go rule the world, and everyone come follow my lead, come with me, family. I'll lead us to the promised land. And then we came back home, and then I felt like a loser, like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, like, so typical Shar, like, okay, I had a baby, and like I have no job, and we were living with our parents, and wasn't able to contribute anything. And Keli'i, my boyfriend, was like, Shar, you have got to start working. We can't just keep living with our parents and money's running out. You've got huge student loan bills to pay. And I'm sorry, if you're not going to find a way to use your degree, you're going to have to go back to bartending.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I can't do that. That's not for
That ship has
me.
sailed. Yeah.
It wasn't where my passion was. And, I worked really hard so I wouldn't have to go back to the service industry.
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of everything I did was driven by fear and desperation. And that is how I just kind of, I don't know, I just started going for it. I decided, like, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna use my degree somehow. And I didn't study graphic design, but I took a lot of graphic design classes. So there's a lot of graphic design jobs here. I'm just gonna put together a graphic design portfolio, and hopefully somebody gives me some entry-level job. Then I'm technically kind of using my degree, right?
Right.
And I just drew and drew and drew and drew and researched, and sort of found myself in that journey almost, really, because I never had done these female-centric artwork. I've never really explored Pacifica and what it's like to be a woman of color until I was just sitting down and playing around with different ideas and styles. And it really was just like that aha moment for me. And that coincided with starting a business and people responding to it. And it just kind of all came together, all based off of how I decided to react from my fear, So I think fear doesn't have to be a bad thing. The fear itself is not a bad thing. That can be a really big driving factor. I think it's your reaction to things. How do you react to that fear?
And it sounds like, you were hit with this fearful, desperate situation, and, oftentimes it can paralyze people, right? And to not doing anything, right? But in your situation, it actually propelled you to actually take action, and it probably sent you in sounds like it sent you to like a dark place to like really figure out your craft, right? Like you said, you never
Yes, it did.
the type of art you do now is not the type of art you were experienced doing, as a whole before. But going into that dark place, you were able to tinker and figure it out and test, and then eventually you kind of found a way out, right? And
Yeah, definitely.
and so for you, was it just the first step after doing your mock portfolio? Was it just putting your new artwork out on social media and getting feedback from people?
Yeah, it's a crazy time we live in, right? Social media, it's free marketing, and it's a great way to test out your artwork or anything, really. And because you get all this free feedback, and you can hashtag things, and it just sends it out into social media land. And that's pretty much it. I was just playing around with different styles and different ideas and different shapes and colors, and just started putting it on Instagram. And it feels like just it started maybe hitting a nerve or connecting with people. And that's maybe the key, is just finding connection, because that's where you get the best response, it's because it feels honest. And that's what I'm creating is honest work. And that from there, it just kind of propelled me into the next thing. Everything was like, okay, well, they like these pictures, I'll print them out and sell them. And that started that. And then I got approached to do small little spot illustrations. So I was like, okay, freelance is going to start growing too. And just kind of everything just came together very organically, and somewhat rapidly also.
With your artwork, where do you, I guess, what is your main source of inspiration? Is there anything in particular that you draw your inspiration from?
I think it depends on what I'm working on. Obviously, the overall things I think about are always like pretty shapes and colors, but on a deeper level, like I think I'm always inspired by the female figure and strength. So I try to showcase my women in a position of strength, and I try to have the viewer always looking up at the woman rather than looking down. I think
Mm.
just empowerment is an ongoing theme in a lot of my work.
I never did notice that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Small little things.
Yeah. How about this one? Um, any kind of big upcoming projects you want to give us a sneak preview of?
Yeah, there's a few things. You can look for the cover of the Hawaii Business Magazine for the month of April. I got the cover for that and the feature illustration in there,
Mm.
so look out for
Oh,
that. I also have a few projects coming out. I guess I can't really talk about, and I've got some. I'm doing the artwork for an upcoming surf film festival that I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, and then my licensing deal over in
that's gonna be
Japan,
cool.
hopefully starting. And then one small one that I definitely can't talk about, but it's like the most exciting thing in the whole wide world for me. And that is involving, I guess the little hint is it has to do with kids.
All right. Right on. We'll be looking out for that. And you recently were invited to do a mural at Powwow, which is pretty cool, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, God, that was what, just a month or two
I
ago?
know. I
Crazy.
felt like a lifetime
Jesus
ago.
Christ, changed quickly.
Yep. Hey, so one of the parts of this show we want to do is we want to bring up an old post of yours and
Oh,
have you talk about it. Give us the background of this. So look at this montage here. Why don't you give the backstory of this particular post?
yes, yes. Oh my gosh. This was my very first like huge client. And I think this is kind of cool because it's where, my freelance and my print world kind of collided. And basically, the art director from Guess was in Waikiki and bought one of my prints and contacted me. And she was like, "Hey, I own one of your prints, and I would love to bring you on to my design team for this small little promo project we're doing. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Oh my God, of course. Of course, I'm in. What I'll do anything you want." And I did, because she asked me to do something that wasn't quite, it had nothing to do with the print artwork that she bought of mine. But she did notice that I do like to do travel posters just on the side, and I do like to do fun graphic designy stuff. So that's what she hired me to do, and I did my best. The funny thing about this, or I think I wrote about it in the description, is that at the time when this was given to me, and there's a really quick turnaround for this one, I also had like 4 or 5 other freelance projects all at the same time that I'd all just committed to all of them. And I was in Vegas for my brother's wedding, and I was super sick. And this all just kind of comes together at the same time. It's like your biggest opportunity, but you've got all these other things, and you have to treat each project as if it's the most important project that you have. That's just the good work ethic you should have, as I think, as anybody as a freelancer. And yeah, this just reminds me of like how if you want to keep moving to the next level, you have to work hard. Sometimes you don't get all the sleep you want, but you have to, at the end of the day, be proud of the work you're putting out there.
That's big time. Guess, that's when it's like, oh wow, they're actually looking at me and they want me. That's pretty cool.
I was so touched.
Right on. So we got the speed round challenge, right? I'm gonna rattle off a series of questions, and the first thing that pops in your head, you're gonna answer. All right? Ready?
Okay.
All right. Your go-to karaoke song.
Texas Flood, Stevie Ray Vaughan. You don't want to hear me sing it, but it's my favorite song.
I was gonna ask you to sing it. All right. All right, next, last place you ordered takeout from.
Wahis and Kailua, of course, my favorite.
Go-to spot right there. Last movie you watched.
Oh, Zombieland.
Favorite quarantine snack.
Coffee.
Fitting for an artist, right? For that caffeine kick. If you go back in time, what year would you travel to?
Early 80s.
What makes you laugh the most?
My boyfriend Kaylee.
Hey, right on. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would that person be?
Michelle Obama.
Right on. What is one thing you could not go a day without?
The sunlight, probably.
If you could learn any new skill, what would it be?
Spear fishing.
Ooh, you self-sufficient, huh?
I'd love that. It'd be fun.
All right, last question. Okay, and so with Rise High, it's about how do we create optimism for a Keiki that they can live and thrive in Hawaii, right? So, in this time we're going through right now, what kind of piece of advice would you give to, say, a high school student or a college student who still trying to figure it out, and maybe they want to live in Hawaii, but they're trying to figure out how they can actually do it? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I think my advice, and it's something I think about all the time, and it helps me grow. And you can apply this to any situation or anywhere you are. And I think this is the advice that my teacher gave me a long time ago, and it's to do something every single day that challenges yourself. Taking yourself out of your comfort zone for just a second, and do something uncomfortable. And that could be something as big as maybe sending in your application to a school you want to go to, or approaching a mentor. And it could be as small as walking out your front door. And the idea is that every time you overcome just a small challenge of your day, you grow a little bit and you become a little more confident, and then the colors of the world are just a little bit brighter. And I swear to you, it works. And I try to do that every single day, even if it's big or small. You never know what can come from that.
I feel like that piece of advice was like the foundation of how Punky Aloha started, right? Was getting
The
out of your
foundation of life.
yeah, about going in that dark place and come back home and trying to figure out what
Yeah.
are you going to do for a living. And you got out of your comfort zone, and here you are. So, Shar, hey, if you guys are not following at Punky Aloha, please do so. Check out our artwork. Super excited about your trajectory as an artist. We're gonna be cheering for you, but really appreciate you coming on our show. And you're a second guest, so that's pretty
Yay!
cool.
I'm so honored. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you so much.
And thank you for waking up at 7:30 in the morning to do this episode. But
Girl.
right on, Shar. You take care. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.